Hey brewers, you're watching Iconoclast Brewing, where we believe there's truth in beer. Today we're looking at clarity overall in beer, and how you can get super clear beer every time you make it. I've been fortunate enough to receive consistent feedback from competitions and BJCP score sheets, and just people trying out my beer who say my beer is brilliantly clear. So I'm here today to show you how you can do that too. Many have inquired about how I do this, and I wasn't really sure at first, because I'm sure all of you can relate. After a while, your process just becomes your process. You don't even realize all the little things you do to perfect that brew. So I started looking inward, I figured out what I was doing, and I'm gonna share that with you today. So I think a good place to start is by looking at this beer I have here today. This is a Goza. This is a kettle soured Goza actually, and I use Helveticus lactobacillus to sour this. And this was done at 104 degrees over about 40 hours and reached a pH of 3.35, which is right in that sweet spot for, well, I guess you could say that sour spot. And it has just enough hops in there to make sure that nothing nasty would grow during the kettle souring process, which is really important. It's about 9 IBUs. So we're looking at 5% alcohol, finishing gravity of 10.05, pretty dry, very clean, and I used about 12 grams of salt for this one. Not a whole lot, and people really enjoy it because it's not overly salty. But the point being here is that this beer is very clear, and there's a lot of wheat in here. The majority of it is wheat, actually. So how did I do that? So the first enzyme I do use quite a few enzymes, is Clarity Ferm. And this is a enzyme that breaks down polypeptides. It's very similar to pectinase or something like that you would use to reduce the haze that comes from fruit. And what this does is it combats chill haze. So a bonus effect is that it significantly reduces gluten levels, which is great if you have friends that are intolerant. I would say your celiac friends, maybe this still isn't safe for them. I wouldn't risk it myself. So the way you use this stuff is pretty easy. It's 1 vial per 5 gallons of wort, and you just add it right at primary. So I usually add it right before I pitch the yeast, and then I aerate, add all my other stuff like ALDC, whatever I might be adding that day, and I pitch my yeast. The second element I use, widely used among homebrewers, is Whirlfloc. Now these tablets are a combination of carrageenan and Irish moss, and you really are supposed to add this to the boil in the last 5 to 10 minutes, they say, which causes positively charged coagulants and particles in the wort to be attracted to the Whirlfloc, so they clump together, and it really helps you clear out the beer that way. In simpler terms, it lures in the proteins and other particles so they group together, making them drop into the Trub. However, I would caution you not to boil this more than 10 minutes, or otherwise the carrageenan will denature and it won't do its job. It won't have that charge anymore, and that's a big problem. So I used to add this at 10 to 15 minutes. Didn't really do much for me. I think I was just wasting money at that point. At this point, I added at 7 minutes along with my yeast nutrient. I cut the difference. So yeast nutrient, they say 10 to 15 minutes. Whirlfloc, they say 5 to 10 minutes. 7 minutes sounds perfect. And I know I'm not going to denature the carrageenan in that case. Next thing I do is actually a protein rest. I commonly do this. I know a lot of people don't. I like to do it myself. My beer is evidence that this works, in my opinion. So what is a protein rest? It's a mash step that occurs between 113 and 130 degrees Fahrenheit. And it ensures that any haze producing proteins are either destroyed or rendered insoluble by protease enzymes. Those are the enzymes that are active during that mash step. And some people will argue that a prolonged protein rest can negatively impact the head retention of a beer. I found that keeping it between 10 and 15 minutes offers only benefits without the drawbacks as you might see on other forums like Homebrew Talk. Okay, so next up is chilling as fast as you can. This goes way back. I think we all know this, but it's good to restate it. It's really important for several reasons. But today we're going to be talking about the clarity reasons behind that. So I'm convinced that rapid chilling plays a pivotal role in achieving beer clarity. When wort is cooled down quickly, a cold break occurs. And this is essentially a collection of coagulated proteins that settle at the kettle's bottom. So this will cause other proteins when combined with the Whirlfloc to stick together once again, preventing a lot of that stuff from making it into the finished beer. And we're going to talk about something a little counterintuitive to this later, which I find really interesting. You can check more out about this in some of my other posts, and I will link to Brulosophy's experiments that talk about this concept. So get ready for that. So one of the last steps, there's 2 remaining here, is cold crashing. Something we've probably all heard a little bit about. So this is a technique where you chill your beer down to near freezing temperatures. I usually hit about 33 degrees Fahrenheit and leave it there for, it could be any amount of time. Traditional brewers might leave it for 5 weeks or longer at this time. Especially a lager would need quite a cold crash and then a lot of conditioning at lagering temps. So what this does is it drops out solid particles from the beer before it gets bottled or kegged. So you're really just getting it all bright, ready for kegging, for packaging. And it ensures that the beer retains clarity and doesn't have any unwanted particles still in suspension. So they all drop to the bottom and then you rack out the beer from on top and it's super clear. Okay, so when we talked about cold break before, I mentioned there's some other ideas out there from Brulosophy, for instance, that challenge some of the concepts that we previously thought were true in brewing to keep beer clear. One of those is actually the idea that having more Trub in your beer, in your fermenter, results in a clearer beer. And this is evidenced through several experiments that Brulosophy did, and I've definitely seen that impact myself. So the reason this happens is, once again, having more proteins in your fermenter with different charges will attract different particles that are in suspension, make them clump together even more. It really uses things like Whirlfloc in combination with those proteins to continue to coagulate throughout the fermentation process. So it turns out, to make really clear beer, you want more Trub in the fermenter. And that was crazy when this all came out for the first time. I was blown away by it. But that's really the gist of it. Okay guys, thanks for joining us today on Iconoclast. Just to rehash everything we talked about, the things you really want to worry about when looking at clarity of beer are clarity Ferm, using that enzyme, that'll help you, and it'll also reduce some gluten. Whirlfloc, a very easy to find ingredient, you can get it at any homebrew shop or anywhere really. Protein rest, using that to help reduce some of those haze-inducing proteins. Rapid chilling, which is going to drop out a lot of different things in the boil and help you there. And then cold crashing, of course, which is going to settle out any particles in suspension during the fermentation phase. And finally, leave that Trub in the fermenter. As long as you don't have a ton of hops in there that might contribute off flavors like grassiness and things like that, go for it. There's no reason to filter that out. So don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you found this useful and you want more information just like this. I have tons of stuff up here I'm going to keep sharing, so don't go away. If you want to show support in other ways, you can visit iconoclastbrewing.com to check out some blog articles or buy us a coffee to help support our channel. See you in the next one, and never stop learning.